Welcome to Sierra Madre Podcast News. This episode we'll be speaking with Bob Spears, the volunteer trail maintenance crew leader, who Bob and the crew are currently restoring the Mount Wilson Trail and parts of Bailey Canyon Trail. It's with great pleasure that I introduce Bob Spears. I'm with Bob Spears. And first of all, Bob, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to help inform the community really what's going on up on the trails right now. Uh, Actually, though, before we get started, I really need to say I think if Sierra Madre were to have our version of a Mount Rushmore of volunteers, you would have to be on there. I mean, when I think of probably a few decades on the fire department, planning commission, spearheading the library project, the crew leader for the trail maintenance, and that's just to name a few. So first of all, Bob, thank you so much for your years of volunteer service to our community, and that really is what's the heart and soul of Sierra Madre.
Thank you.
So with that, if you could kind of just we'll start with the Mount Wilson Trail and just explain to the community what is going on there. You know, we had the fire and then we had the rains, and it pretty much washed out the trail. It was closed
Did
for a while, and thanks to all of you and your crew of volunteers, you've had it reopened. So, if you could just explain what's going on.
sure. As we all know, the Eaton Fire came around in January 7th and burned all the hillside above Sierra Madre. And because Sierra Madre, the hills above Sierra Madre are new and they're still being pushed up, uh, they are very, very steep. And there's a concept called the angle of repose, which is the angle that the Earth sits at that is the highest angle where things don't roll off, and just one more degree and things start to roll off. Well, the the fire burned all the vegetation and the vegetation was holding a lot of rocks and debris on the side of the mountain, and it all came down and buried the trail. So for the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 months after the fire, we did nothing but dig because the mountain came down and buried the trail. There was no, you think of the mountain coming down and then there's a flat place where there's a trail and it goes down again. There was no no flat place. It was all buried, and so we had to don, respirators and breathing apparatus kind of stuff to protect our lungs, and we just started to dig. And we dug and dug and dug, and then there was fallen trees and there were big rocks, and so we started off just trying to move tons and tons and tons of dirt. And then, lucky enough or unlucky enough, we got two atmospheric rivers that hit us, and every place where a drainage crosses the trail, the water was focused in such an intense manner that it wiped out the trail. And it took the hillside all the way down to the bedrock because, while we look up at the hills and see greenery and that's growing on dirt, that dirt is like icing on a cupcake. It's not very deep. And the intensity and the flow of the water pushed all the dirt down, and that's what you saw, all those trucks behind the dam at the top of the canyon. That's what they were removing because it all got pushed down there. So the problem for us for the trail is the trail would go along and suddenly it would disappear because there was this giant, washout. So our next challenge was some engineering where we um, used battery operated drills. We have a drill, big SDS Max drill. You understand what that means.
Sure.
um, to drill inch and eighth inch holes so we could put in inch rebar in to build a structure so that we could replace the trail, because otherwise it would have been, there was nothing there. And so in the past it had been rocks, and in the past Charlie Bell had put in a number of things and reinforced it with concrete. Some of that stayed, most of that got washed away. So we would be moving heavy 1 inch rebar Uh, we would be moving up all kinds of fencing and stuff so that we could build a partition that would that would be strong enough to hold the dirt and everything back so that we could put a trail across. And so there were a number of those, and we got a lot of help. I can tell you that if you ever look up on the trail at like 4 o'clock in the morning and you see headlights up there,
I do.
so I can tell you about that. They're about 4 or 5 young women who are very, very strong, and they stepped up and said, "Hey, can we carry supplies and materials?" And I had all these pieces of rebar, including 2 pieces of 20-foot, 1-inch rebar. And if I leave it at the bottom of the trail, up where that open area is, they carry it up. All I got to do is tell them where. And these women are phenomenal. They've been the saving grace for part of what we've been doing. There's a lot of wonderful things came together. People have donated to the Fletcher Fund. The volunteers have showed up to, how can I help? And these women, uh, you know, are unrecognized, but they have carried a lot of steel up the mountain all the way to Orchard Camp. And so, they would start carrying it up, then we would go up with the tools and drill in and put in the rebar and epoxy it in, and then build the fencing back and forth, and then fill it full of sandbags and dirt and rock so that there's a flat trail again. And we've been doing that. We were digging 5 and 6, 7 days a week, and then we got tired. Then we back to 4 days a week. We start at 7 o'clock, and we're usually done off the trail by 11:30. And then I've got to run around and buy materials. And then lately we've been down to 3 days a week and trying to finish off. Right now we're doing vegetation management because we got 24 inches of rain. And that, of course, allowed everything to grow. And part of the trail that it needs to be wide enough, one for the race, and second of all, because people get nervous about snakes. And a narrow trail, they think the snakes are hiding and waiting for them to go by to bite them. Snakes are not aggressive, but if you step on them, they will remind you that they're there. So right now we're at the vegetation management stage. We've finished all of our major engineering projects on the Mount Wilson Trail, and we'll start on Bailey Canyon Trail once everything is ready for the race. But we put in. Are you familiar with what a gabion basket is?
No.
It is a mesh like chain link fence. Think chain link fence box that you can put in and fill full of rock,
Oh, I am familiar with it. Yeah.
and then it becomes like one giant rock. So we've used them to build what we hope to be conditions that are going to be impervious to the next heavy rainstorms. Because, quite honestly, I think the weather is changing, and that we may be getting more atmospheric rivers. So, I'm not an engineer by trade. I got a lot of guys who are engineers that are working with me, but they're all like scientists from JPL. But we're trying to build it so that it will survive the next atmospheric rivers and other issues.
Well, I think those fences too, they allow the water to go through, so you won't have this hydrostatic pressure building
Exactly.
up.
Exactly. You have to build something that'll hold material but let the water pass.
Right, right,
In some cases, I put in those perforated pipes so that if the water trickles through, it goes out the bottom. It doesn't go push through it. There's a lot of, I'm like I said, I'm not an engineer, but I tried to come up with, what's the cleverest way to solve this problem. So,
right.
and it's got to, whatever it is, it's got to be portable because you got to carry it 2 or 3 miles before it gets installed.
So, I mean, well, first of all, is the trail, how far is it open currently?
It's all the way open to the top of Mount Wilson.
Okay, good. And in the course of the restoration that you're doing, I mean, you guys, the volunteers, you're entering kind of the side of this hillside. and it's not safe. So,
Well,
I mean, there's a lot of dangers that you guys had to deal with just to get the trail to start working on it.
so we work. Safety is obviously the one and the most important thing. These are great people, but we don't want to see anybody hurt. No one, knock on wood, has been hurt so far. If anybody goes over the side, it's me. Because on the fire department, I had a little experience with at the end of the rope. Plus, we have the Sierra Madre Search and Rescue team that are happy to come and help. They're wonderful. They're just the absolute best. Um, we we cut into the mountain so that we're not hanging over the mountain because the whole idea is you want to build a safe passage for people. There was one place where the water wiped out any possibility of the trail, and it was so steep. We're talking, almost 90-degree angle there, that we ended up using rotor hammers to chisel into the mountain to create a curve that was. Then we created the flat spot because, and we were fortunate enough that the decomposed granite was soft at that location, so that we could just sit there and you know, we we tried using it. We lugged a generator up there.
Oh.
We bought a Milwaukee hammer drill, and we used it. But the Milwaukee hammer drill got full of sand, and it crapped out. So we went to Makita battery operated. So every trip up there, we carry batteries, and then we chisel away at the side of the mountain until we make a flat enough spot for people to go through. One of our conditions is one of the things we're constantly thinking about is that the search and rescue need to get up there and they need to evacuate somebody on a litter. So you can't do a tight or narrow turn, a quick turn, because the litter is like 8 feet long and it has to get around. So on more than one occasion, we've cut something and I've called search and rescue up and said, is this wide enough? Do we need to make it wider? Are you okay with that? And so we've worked with them to make sure that the trail is going to be useful for their work as well.
And then how far up the trail is still within the city of Sierra Madre?
Ah, so um, the city, you were probably around when the Sierra Madre Conservancy got the large sections up in the mountain for the
Right.
wilderness.
Yes.
If you go on Zillow and you type in zip code 91024, Sierra Madre is very large on their map. It goes almost up. It goes almost up to the top of Mount Wilson. And when I'm on the trail race committee, and 1 year when we went to the Forest Service saying, hey, we need a permit to run in your forest, they came back and said, no, the Mount Wilson Trail Race only goes into the forest on one little section for 400 feet. And the reason for that is there's a conservancy that is part of Sierra Madre. We're like Denmark, we have a lot of land.
Right.
And it goes all the way up past it. Matter of fact, are you familiar with Manzanita Ridge?
Yes.
Okay, so it goes up into Manzanita Ridge.
Okay.
It goes that far. Now, we we manage the trail to be as wide as possible up to Orchard Camp because that's the pathway for the trail race. We did, however, the Forest Service came to us and said, "Hey, we want to open the forest, and the easternmost boundary we want to be the Mount Wilson Trail because the trail is well maintained." Cool, but I hadn't been maintaining or I hadn't been actively working the trail between Orchard Camp and Manzanita Ridge. So I said, well, give me a month because we haven't even addressed that upper part. So we ended up renting a van on maybe three occasions, and we drove a team of guys up to the top of Mount Wilson and hiked down and cut the trees and opened up and moved a lot of dirt so that there's a single track between Manzanita Ridge and Orchard Camp.
Okay.
Because making it a double wide would have been a whole lot of work, but it was not very passable. There were a lot of downed trees. There were a lot of places where the water had done a lot of damage. So you would like jump down into a ravine and walk across and then have to crawl out of a ravine. So we fixed that. And um, there was a lot of things that changed. When have you gone to Orchard Camp in the old days when there was a giant tree across?
I haven't been up there since I was a teenager.
Ah, okay.
So
Well, there used to be this giant 3 foot wide oak tree that fell across the trail right before Orchard Camp. And when we got there, we were shocked because it was totally gone. All was left was ashes. The fire the fire really burned through and took out a lot of material. So there are still standing trees there. You're still in a forest as you go up there. It's beautiful. The rains were on one on one hand they gave us a lot of challenges. On another hand, they were a godsend. There's a lot of grass and shrubbery grew back up so that the hillsides are stable now. So we think that the trail is, if not as good, is in better shape than it was before the fire.
I'm sorry, you said it's in better shape?
Probably.
And and that's something I was thinking about. There's probably with nobody more experienced than you and your crew that are able to assess the safety of the trail. And now that it's opened all the way to the top to Mount Wilson, we know that it's safe. And even so, you say you're not engineers. My assessment would be that you guys probably know what's safe better than anybody else. Now, at least there's probably nobody that has more familiarity with the trail than you and your crew.
Uh-huh.
Having said that,
Yeah.
um, can we talk about Tetra Tech?
Okay.
So for the residents, the city, I believe, approved a $20,000 contract with Tetra Tech, who I believe are geoengineers, to assess the safety of the trail. And I'm just curious, are they doing soil samples or is this just visual inspections?
It's visual inspections. When it first came about, uh, I had a meeting. My first. I'm a I'm a taxpayer, so it's okay. I brought in. We met with both Forest Service and Search and Rescue because I don't want them to take my word for the safety of the trail. These are people that know trails, professionally. And they said the trails were fine, but the city elected to go with Tetra Tech. And I believe what the attempt was to lay off any liability because they were about to run a trail race, and the trail race is a city-sponsored event. And even though that there's a law that says that there's a law called trail indemnity, where if you use a trail, you do it at your own risk because no cities would have a trail in their jurisdiction if they were held responsible for it. And so plus the runners sign a release form. But I believe what the city was trying to do was lay off any liabilities in the event that something wasn't right. And I guess I'll let you you served a lot of time on the council. You were a mayor. I'll let you opine on that judgment. So Tetra Tech comes out and they have couple geologists and a structural engineer. And let's see, the first time there was some miscommunication and they didn't show. The second time, one of the geologists, I guess, he wasn't used to hiking up hills and he made it about halfway up. And the other guy was, so okay, fine, we'll come back. And the third time, they made it all the way up to Orchard Camp. And they produced a report that had a number of items to be addressed. So actually, those were already on my list to do. So I had done half of them and I did the other half. And so since then they've done a second. The contract called for 3 inspections. So the second inspection happened over a week ago with a structural engineer. And I learned a lot from him because it was kind of fun, but he's he didn't show any signs of heart failure based on what was going on. He was pretty happy with what he saw, but he's been hired to produce another report. I have not seen that other report, so I don't know if there's another to-do list, and I'm kind of hoping that it shows up soon because I'm running out of time between now and the race. And then they're supposed to do one final one. So uh, the Tetra Tech people are actually very understanding. They understand it's a trail on the side of a mountain in the middle of a forest. It's a trail that gets modified every time it rains because debris falls down. It's not like a reinforced concrete structure that's never supposed to change. So that that's happening, and there were a number of deadlines for that. So I've been trying to work hard to make sure that I make all the deadlines so that the report will be at least helpful and we can comply with it. And in the event that the city needs the report to you know protect itself from something, it would be fine. So I while on one hand I understand that maybe we should check this out to make sure that the trail has never been this damaged before, and it's true. I don't think in the history of the trail it's got wiped out like this. And you have some volunteer that's up there hauling rebar up and sticking it in the mountain, you know and I certainly don't have any credentials or degree to do that. But the city did what it did, and so I'm trying to make sure that I follow their directions. I tend to overbuild because I'm not an engineer. Uh, so that's why the rebar is extra big. That's why we do extra stuff. So plus, I want it to last a while. I don't want to have to be up there again. I'm not getting any younger here. And so if it fails again, it's going to be, oh man, it's going to be a lot of work. So, you know, you're a contractor, you've built things, and that sometimes what code calls for and what eternity calls for are two different things. You want things to last.
Right.
You're building around your house now, and I'm sure you're not, you know, cutting it close to the margins. You're building it because you want to sit there and look at it and for the rest of your life and know that it's going to be there for a long time. And that's kind of where I'm at. So my only challenge is whatever I choose to do, I've got to carry for 4 miles. So I have I can't just call Home Depot or have everything delivered, and cement truck is not going to get there. So whatever I do, I've got to figure out how to get it there.
Right. And so we have the Mount Wilson Trail race coming up in about a month. I believe it's May 23rd.
That's correct.
And I'm assuming we're looking good, but
Yeah. I, we had a bit of a scare because the one point in the middle of this, the city sent me a list of 12 concerns that when we first started, one of my questions was, what are the standards? Because if there's standards for what they're looking for, I want to address them because I certainly don't have the time and energy to do this twice. And they sent me 12 things that they thought, and then it came out that they were just trying to be careful about something. So that I think hopefully dismissed, because I was very careful to ask them, is it your intention to cancel the trail race because of safety? And the answer came back, no. Okay, fine. So, and we have not heard anything from Tetra Tech that said, oh no, you shouldn't be doing this. This is, very dangerous. This is bad. So everything has been go up until now. So we've Pete Sibrel, our race director, has been up and down the trail a number of times. He's happy with it. Like I said, right now we're doing vegetation management because we have things that are growing so fast that the trail where it used to be, this wide is now half as wide because stuff is growing out. And so we're cutting back all the vegetation so that people can pass. We try to create a trail where runners can go past each other without feeling unsafe. One of the side effects of the fire is that there is no longer a lot of shrubbery next to the trail. you had the assumption that up and before the fire that if you fell off the trail, there was a lot of stuff to grab, and you wouldn't fall very far. Well, initially, when we were first done, there was nothing. It was moonscape all the way down to the water, and everybody goes, "Whoa, wow, that's a very steep." I never noticed how steep it was. Yeah, it is steep. It's and when you look up from the bottom, it looks steep, and it is. But there was enough brush and other things to modify that concern. Well, fortunately, it's growing back. There's more and more things on the trail, but for a while it looked it looked a little intimidating.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, hopefully everything will go smoothly, and on the 23rd we'll have our annual trail race. How can we move on to Bailey Canyon, and where are we on that?
Bailey Canyon. So we spent about a month on Bailey Canyon doing some work over there. Now I will tell you that the water damage in Bailey Canyon was phenomenal. If you go down to the base of Bailey Canyon, it looked like the Grand Canyon. I mean, it really washed out a lot. It took out a lot of debris. It filled that debris basin in a heartbeat. Also, remember the little bridge that went across to Live Oak Park? That's
Yes.
gone. And not only did it burn and fall in, then the water came along and there was not even, remnants of it. So I, I, we worked there for a while, cut some stuff. Okay, we're getting there. Then we came back to once the city let the contract with Tetra Tech. I pulled out of Bailey Canyon and came back to Mount Wilson Trail because I wanted to address their concerns and make sure that no one was going to get nervous about that. So as soon as we get done with Mount Wilson, we're going to go over to Bailey Canyon. Now, Bailey Canyon is inside the forest closure area because the Mount Wilson Trail is the easternmost boundary to the National Forest, which means, our trail and all the trails over on Chantry are open, but you can't go. So going to Jones Peak via the Bailey Canyon Trail is not sanctioned by the Forest Service. Now, I will tell you that people go up the Mount Wilson Trail and there is a connector trail to Jones Peak, and they're telling me they're going to Jones Peak all the time, and I go, it's closed, but knock yourself out. That's on you. And the people have been up there, and I've heard about it. So, but I can tell you that at the base of Bailey Canyon, there was a huge washout. I've got to figure out how to get across the stream bed because it used to be a nice level walk across. Now you go down and up 6 or 7 feet to get across.
Right.
And and a lot of the flow from behind the monastery now drains into that. I mean, I guess it's part of the same drainage or watershed. So I guess it made sense, but it never was focused quite as much. That has nothing to do, by the way, with the development. This is way behind the monastery up on the hill. And so I'm doing some head scratching on, what's the best way to do this? And I'm trying to figure out how to move, I don't know, some kind of drainage pipe in there so that we can create a crossing of some kind. So anyway, there are some yet to be solved issues there.
In my understanding, the trail crew, you're working from the gate and up to the point up the canyon to the point where it starts to go up the side of the mountain. Up what I always called the cabin up there. You're not going up farther up pardon?
Bailey Canyon, you're right?
Yes.
Yes, okay, yes.
Yeah, you're not going up farther to what we always called the first waterfall.
So we will restore the trail all the way up to Jones Peak.
Okay.
And people are hiking that trail on occasion because I get reports all the time.
Right.
But have we repaired all the washouts? No. One of the challenges with Bailey Canyon is all the switchbacks are on top of each other. So if you clear off one switchback and you push the dirt over the
Right.
side, it ends up you're going to go down. You're going to see that same rock 6 times.
Right.
So we have to figure out, okay, so how do we, get the dirt out of the way, and then where the drainage is tight, it washes everything out. So we're using those gabion baskets again, put them in, stake them in with T-stakes, fill them with rock, and then have a crossing that will pass water and be safe, a safe transit.
Right. Now, all of this work, all of this materials, the labor force is all done by volunteers, but the
Correct.
materials, somebody's got to pay for it. Can you talk a little bit about the Fletcher Trail Maintenance Fund?
The, 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 the Fletcher Fund is a fund that is a part of the Sierra Madre Community Foundation, which is a 501c3. And so if people elect to donate to the Fletcher Fund, it goes through the Community Foundation, and it resides, it's an account that resides. So when I go down to Southwest Concrete in El Monte and have them cut me rebar, I can bring the receipt back, turn it in, and be reimbursed. So right now I'm buying stuff and getting reimbursed, and we've gone through maybe between $50,000 and $75,000 worth of materials.
Right.
And because we're buying safety gear, we're buying tools, we're buying materials, and I'm very, very fortunate enough that whenever things, whenever I buy stuff, it seems like right at the same time someone is very generous. The Edison Corporation donated $10,000. Starbucks donated $3,000. We just the Amundsen Foundation is about to, I believe, donate $5,000. Plus, we have some incredibly generous and kind members of the community that have donated money. So I'm absolutely incredulous that while I'm like, okay, I can't get too carried away here. When we have needed money, the money has been there. So it was a lot like when I redid the post office. We put out the word, and people thought, okay, that's a good enough project. I'll donate it. I'll donate for it. So cool. I'm very lucky.
Well, again, I think the volunteer spirit of Sierra Madre, that really is the heart and soul of this community. And it has, I mean, I grew up here and it's always been that way. But if somebody wants to donate to the Fletcher Fund, how specifically can they do that?
So they can go to the Sierra Madre Community Foundation website, and there's a QR code there, and there's also a drop-down menu, and they can click on Fletcher Fund, and they can do a PayPal. They can write a check and send it to the Community Foundation. There are, either way. Um, I've had people give me cash, which makes me nervous. So I get, my wife is on the Community Foundation board. So I hear, dear, take it in and, deposit it. But people have been very, very generous, and I'm always in awe and very humbled by, their trust and the fact that, but I'll tell you the one great thing about working on the trail. First of all, you get immediate gratification. You've made a difference, even if you did 1 hour's worth of work. And then everybody that comes by says thank you. And I mean, how great is that? Plus, you're outdoors, so it's not like any other job. I worked at schools. I was an emergency manager. I did a bunch of other stuff like that, and nothing compares to the fact that everybody comes by. Hey, thank you for doing this. You're doing a great job. Because in the rest of the world, you would wait a long time before that happens.
Right.
So, I'm happy to do it. I have people that volunteer. There've been over 100, maybe probably 150 people over since last January that have come through. I've had scientists from JPL. I've had running clubs, Asian running clubs, where one guy spoke English, everyone else spoke Mandarin, but I tell him, okay, we need to go do this. We got a lot of digging done when those people were through. They would have, you know, and I had to buy a bunch of McLeods and shovels, but hey, here it is, go do it. But it gets done, and uh, you know, I consider myself to be incredibly lucky because, you know, I I took this thing on and I'm figuring, man, how is this going to happen? But enough people think, this is the right thing to do. This is fun. They're most of them are retired. The ones that are coming every day are retired or between jobs or have a job that allows them to spend 4 hours on a Tuesday or Thursday morning. Um, and we just keep, every week we just keep, you know, throwing yourself at it. Eventually it gets done. Eventually, you get there.
So I believe you mentioned you're meeting 3 times a week now, the crew. And if I understand correctly, on Sundays afterwards, there's a little get together off of the trail at Lizzie's.
So on Sunday, um, I I go buy the beer. It doesn't come out of the Fletcher Fund. I buy some beer and we sit on Lizzie's front porch. Like on Saturday, the there's a group of old guys that sit there and opine about the world and recollect. And on Sunday, it's the bunch of the volunteers that we sit there and have enjoy each other's company and have a beer and talk about what's what. And yeah, that's and it. You know what? It's very very pleasant.
Great
Every now and then
camaraderie. Yeah.
we go to a movie, on some evening, or we do something like that because these are great people. They're wonderful guys, and they come from. I wouldn't have been able to meet them any other way. There's scientists from JPL. There was one guy who had active projects on Mars, and he was up there drilling rocks for them on the Mount Wilson Trail. And I'm thinking, wow, that's there's a look at that. So we have people doing. We have a lot of different kinds of engineers that like to do things. We have we have soup to nuts. So it's we, the overriding attraction is they're all fun. They enjoy what they do. They like getting out. They like the exercise. You can work at your own pace. You know what? You come and you work for 5 minutes with a shovel. I'm happy because that's 5 minutes no one else had to do.
Right.
And and some people are kind of older or tired or whatever. And I said, okay, here's a project down at the base of the trail. We don't expect you to hike to Mount Wilson. I do have a couple of 20-year-olds that I treat like rented mules because hey, you're going a long way, dude. And some of them are trying to get in shape to get hired by the Forest Service. Fine, I will help you. I'll write for you. I will show you the tools. But while you're doing that, you're helping us, and yeah, they think that's great. So cool. So you have to build it from with the pieces that you get.
And if anybody would like to participate and volunteer and join your crew, how do they get a hold of you?
So I'm at Bob at Bob Spears. No, I'm at Bob Spears at Earthlink.net. Bob Spears at Earthlink.net. And then if they just show up to the bin, the green bin on Mount next to 445 Mount Wilson Trail at 7 o'clock on a Sunday, Tuesday, or Thursday, we can get them. We can get them organized.
Okay. And with your permission, I'll add some links to this if I can figure out,
Sure, no
and
problem.
possibly for donations for the Fletcher Fund.
Bless you.
Great.
No,
And
we
Bob,
still have to
thanks.
we still have to work on Bailey Canyon, so and I haven't figured out what that's going to take. I have to build
Okay.
a suspension bridge or something. I don't know.
There you go. Well, yeah, yeah, we'll get some structural engineers to design it.
I please.
Uh, Available local materials. There you go. Yeah. Well, Bob, thank you so much. Again, you've got my vote for Sierra Madre's Mount Rushmore of volunteers. Appreciate everything you've done for decades, and look forward to the Mount Wilson Trail Race.
Excellent. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you there. And please, come up the trail. You don't live very far from the base of the trail, so go out for a hike.
I look forward to it.
Okay,
Great. Thank you so much, Bob.
you're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.